Most Canadians will never save $100,000. I want you to sit with that, because it isn't a motivational line. It's just the arithmetic of the country you're living in right now. In 2026, a one-bedroom apartment in Toronto runs around $2,400 a month. In Vancouver, it's closer to $2,600. The national household savings rate has slipped to roughly 4.4%, and for every single dollar of disposable income Canadians hold, they carry about $1.76 of debt. The median single person, under 35 in this country, has only about $36,500 saved. So when I say six figures feels like a pipe dream, I'm not being dramatic. I'm describing the current. And that's the first thing you have to understand. The first 100,000 is the hardest milestone you will ever hit, because you are not saving in calm water. You are swimming upstream against a high inflation economy that is actively pulling the dollar out of your hands. Rent takes a bite. The grocery bill at Loblaws takes another. The CRA takes its share off the top before you ever see the check. Everyone gets paid before you do. So let's talk about why almost everyone quits before they get there. It's a thing I call survival brain. When you have less than $5,000 in your Scotiabank or TD account, every single decision becomes an emergency. Your brain is not planning, it's defending. A broken furnace in February isn't an inconvenience. It's a threat to your entire stability. A transmission that fails on the 401 isn't a repair bill. It's a crisis that could put you into debt for a year. When you live this close to zero, you can't think in decades. You can only think in days. And you cannot build wealth from inside a permanent emergency, because every dollar you save gets immediately consumed by the next fire. This is the trap. This is where most people spend their entire lives. So why is $100,000 the magic number? Why that figure specifically? Because that's the moment you hire your first employee. And this employee never sleeps, never calls in sick, and never asks for a raise. Here's the math. At a conservative 8% return in a broad market ETF, $100,000 generates $8,000 a year. On its own, while you sit on your couch. That's a tax-free vacation, or a full month of high-end groceries, appearing every single year without you lifting a finger. You didn't work for that $8,000. Your money did. For the first time in your life, there is something on your side of the table working just as hard as you are. And this is where the whole game quietly flips. Getting to that first 100,000 is a slog of pure labor. It is you, and only you, dragging every dollar up the hill by hand. But the second 100,000 happens roughly twice as fast, because now the money is doing the heavy lifting alongside you. You're no longer pushing the boulder alone. The compounding has finally woken up, and it starts pushing with you. Most people never feel this shift, because they quit on the hill before the machine ever switches on. Now, this is Canada, so we have a weapon most people barely use. The shells, the shields. The TFSA and the FHSA are two of the most powerful tools the government has ever handed an ordinary Canadian. And most people treat them like a plain savings account. Understand what actually happens inside a TFSA. $100,000 compounding in there is generating that $8,000 a year, completely tax-free. The CRA cannot touch it. Not the growth, not the withdrawal. It is the ultimate shield. And the FHSA lets you stack a down payment while getting the tax deduction on the way in and the tax-free growth on the way out. If you're grinding toward your first $100,000 and you're doing it in a taxable account first, you are handing a slice of your progress to the CRA every year for no reason. Fill the shells first? Always. But here's the part nobody tells you, and it has nothing to do with money. It's an identity shift. Before you have savings, you are a survivor. After you cross $100,000, you slowly become an owner. And owners behave completely differently. A survivor buys things to look rich, the leased car, the logo, the appearances. An owner buys time to be free. Once you have real money behind you, you stop performing wealth and start purchasing freedom. And the most valuable thing that money buys isn't a car. It's the ability to walk away, to look a toxic manager at a big Canadian bank or telecom in the eye and know, quietly, calmly, that you do not need this job to survive. That security changes how you stand, how you negotiate, how you sleep. $100,000 in liquid assets is not just a number. It's a spine. Now let me show you the most expensive mistake people make. They wait. $100 saved today is worth dramatically more than $100 earned 20 years from now. Why? Because the loonie is quietly losing purchasing power every single year. The $100 you earn in 2026 buys real groceries, real fuel, real assets. The $100 you're promised in the future will buy a fraction of that. Inflation is a tax nobody voted for, and cash is how you pay it. The only real defense, the only thing that outruns the shrinking dollar, is owning assets. Businesses, index funds, real productive things that grow faster than the loonie shrinks. Cash melts. Assets compound. That is the entire difference between the people who make it and the people who tread water forever. So how do you actually get there? 3 moves. Move 1, the 30-day audit. For the next 30 days, you hunt the invisible leaks. The subscriptions you forgot you had. The food delivery markup that turns a $15 meal into a $30 one. The small, automatic, silent withdrawals that never announce themselves. Most people are losing a few $100s a month to leaks they can't even name. Find them. Kill them. That's your first raise, and it's tax-free. Move 2, the automation rule. On payday, money moves into a low-cost, global ETF, automatically. Before the CRA, before Loblaws, before your landlord, before you. You pay your future self first, and you make it invisible, so your survival brain never gets a vote. Willpower fails. Automation doesn't. The money is gone before you ever feel tempted to spend it. Move 3, and this is the one people hate to hear. The income lever. You cannot budget your way to $100,000. There is a floor to how much you can cut, but there is no ceiling on how much you can earn. At some point, clipping coupons stops working, and you have to increase your actual value to the Canadian economy. Better skills, a better role, a side income. You do not shrink your way to wealth. You grow into it. And here's the warning nobody gives you before you start. There is a stretch in the middle that will test you far more than the beginning ever did. You'll climb past $40,000, then $50,000, then $60,000, and it will feel like absolutely nothing is happening. The graph looks flat. The 8% is quietly working in the background, but at this size, the growth is still small enough that you can't feel it yet. This is the boring middle. And it is exactly where most people quit, not because they failed, but because they got bored waiting on a machine that simply hadn't finished warming up. So hear me on this. Do not quit in the boring middle. That flat stretch you're staring at is not the plateau. It's the runway. Charlie Munger said it best. He said the first $100,000 is a nightmare, but you have to do it. And in Canada, in this economy, he's right. It is a nightmare. It is a grind. Against rent, against inflation, against a dollar that keeps shrinking under your feet. But it's also a bridge. On one side of it, you're a survivor, defending zero, living in a permanent emergency. On the other side, you're an owner, with an invisible employee earning $8,000 a year on your behalf and the freedom to walk away from anything that doesn't serve you. Cross that bridge, and everything changes, because you finally stop working for your money, and your money, at last, starts working for you. If you learned something from this video, make sure to like and hit subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.